Batavia, Iraq. Well, before we start with rum, we should start before rum. This is Batavia, Iraq. Iraq is what it is, A-R-R-A-C-K, and Batavia is where it's from. Batavia being a city port on the island of Java. So sometimes this is called Java rum or Java red rice rum. It is a blend of, like this particular one is 98% sugarcane distillate and 2% Java red rice. So it's basically rum. And this comes from an era when we were discovering or colonizing the whole eastern half of the planet. Still thinking of it as Eastern at that time. So Batavia, Iraq is not the Iraq from the Middle East. It is not an anise flavored liqueur. This is a 100 proof, 50% ABV proto rum, pre-rum rum. Now, where does it come from? Why is it important to us? Well, A, we like it because it's tasty. And it's 100 proof, and it's rich and full flavored. It definitely tastes like a well-made sugarcane based spirit. It's historically important because it was the original punch ingredient. Back when flavors like citrus, sugar, spice were exotic things, this was the exotic flavor that made the punch punchy. So we like to use it in that, and we also like to use it in other things when we want something that is got some interesting flavor to kind of uphold the bottom of our cocktails, but it's not going to dominate, and it's a clear spirit. So it's not really showcasing all those barrel flavors either, all that Christmas tree spice. So it's a little cleaner in that regard. So it's really interesting, and it's also, since it's white, it can make prettier cocktails sometimes when you're not looking to have that darker element of a darker rum. Batavia, Iraq. Rum, not just for breakfast anymore. So rum, R-U-M, ron, R-O-N, rum, R-H-U-M. What's the difference? Nothing. Language, actually. There's English, there's Spanish, there's French. Now, there might be a hint or an insinuation implied by whether you use the English, the Spanish, or the French. Those are three different schools of making rum, but there's no legal entity that's going to hold you to account on stylistic. There's no law tying any one of those words to any specific style of rum making. Rum is a distillate made from sugarcane. That's kind of what all rum can agree on. Rum might be one of the oldest spirits on the planet. Some folks say it goes back to about 1300s in India, but there's plenty of different styles, and that's certainly not how we think of rum today. Rum today really showcases mostly the Caribbean, but it's made on every continent. Rum is made everywhere in the world. The most famous rums that we talk about today, however, are usually either the Caribbean or Latin America. So what are the different styles and how do you make it? Well, rum can be made of three main sources. There's raw sugarcane juice. That's usually reserved for rum agricole, which is a very unique French style of making rum. You're basically fresh pressing the sugarcane, which is a grass, and the fresh press, the run juice, you turn that juice, which has got sugar into it, much like you would grape juice into wine. You're going to turn that into a low alcohol solution and distill that, and then you make rum agricole, which is the French style of making it. There's cane syrup, which is more of a modern thing. So you take that juice and you make a concentrate out of it without ruining the sugar solids, and then send that on. It's cheaper to make in a sugar producing zone and then ship places because there's less volume. It's a concentrate. Then last but not least, but inarguably most important, molasses. 90% of all rum made internationally is made out of molasses. And what I mentioned earlier, sugar producing zones, clearly where you raised sugarcane was originally where you also made rum, because most rum was made directly where you made the cane, and most sugar was planted to make, most sugar cane was planted to make sugar, to sell as a product. The industrial waste byproduct of sugar manufacturing is molasses. So you basically had this free leftover byproduct, but that still had sugar in it. So if it has sugar in it, you can ferment it. If you can ferment it, you can distill it. So you'll see everywhere that there was sugar was planted all of the islands through the Caribbean and Latin America and other places in the world where sugar cane was a thing, rum ended up becoming a thing because it was a natural use to use a second use of that product. So rums have a whole, besides those three base materials, then rum also comes kind of color coded, is how a lot of people think of it. There's white rum, or sometimes called silver or white rum, and most of the ones we think of are Puerto Rican. Now they come through us originally from Cuba, but Batista kicks the Bacardi family out and they set up shop in Puerto Rico rather, and you get a lot of it from Cuba. Now, this is from St. Croix, and this is a Cachaça, which is another kind of rum from Brazil, and this one happens to be white. The lighter rums, and then there's gold rums, which in a perfect world would mean they saw a little time in barrel, they got a little color, maybe they're a little more flavorful. That's a perfect world. Then there's darker rums, and then blackstrap rums, and we'll get into all of these as we go through little segments. But I say in a perfect world, and this is why. A couple of different ways to think about rum is geography. It's very important to know geography. Just like I said, rum is rum, R-U-M, which is English, or ron, which is R-O-N, which is Spanish for rum. Ron Bacardi. Ron was not Mr. Bacardi's first name. That is rum Bacardi. And then rum, R-U-H-M, as in rum agricole, or the French style of making rum. So different styles took place because the Caribbean is on islands and is spread out just enough. Different styles became, and different practices became the tradition in different locations. So although most of the places that make rum make a kind of rainbow of styles now, they all originally became known for their local style. Whereas in Cuba and Puerto Rico, you have this light style that's kind of just barely sweetened, not a lot of flavor, but it's great for mixing things. In St. Croix, originally you had this golden style. Barbados has a slightly different style. You get all the way to Jamaica with their black rums, their famous black rums, very funky, very full of hogo. So you have these different styles that are tied to the traditions geographically. And that's important to know. And that's one of the ways that rums can separate themselves based on tradition. But along with that loose tradition comes with a lack of legal constraint. So rums often have no legal imperative or no legal restriction on their use of coloring, their use of flavoring, their use of added sugar, and in some cases, things like added sugar are historical practice. They're the right way to make rum in certain jurisdictions. In other jurisdictions, adding sugar after distillation is inherently a no-go. So it all depends on where you're looking for, and then also trusting the manufacturer of the rum you're looking for. And I go back to those three ways to say it. Rum, R-U-M, is English. English style rums tended to be a little sweeter. They're a molasses based, they tended to be a little sweeter. Ron, or Spanish style rums, tended to be a little drier, but also molasses based. And R-H-U-M rum is French, and those tended to be either A, rum agricole, meaning all fresh pressed juice, or in the case of places like Haiti, sometimes it's a mixture of agricole and molasses, like sugar cane and juice and molasses placed up together, and they gave you a funkier, kind of more herbaceous style, but because that's the tradition from where they are. So that's just a little rum 101, and in future segments, we'll work on to breaking them down by kind of color category for you. White rum, silver rum, plata, any way you want to say colorless. White rum started its life, or at least it became very popular in Cuba when Cuba was the destination for American tourists. And they simply took their kind of gold rums and filtered the color back out and then served them to the tourists. It was a way for Americans who kind of lost their taste for bold flavored spirits to the kind of ascending vodka market they were selling these rums to. And you can even see it in the advertisements from the day. You see Bacardi advertisements, very mixable, try it with Coca-Cola or orange juice. So white rums became this kind of exotic idea for Americans who were drinking abroad on their vacation in Cuba. Now, of course, because of geopolitical reasons over the years, it's more associated with Puerto Rico. This is a bottle from St. Croix, it's Cruisian, and it says aged rum right here. So normally the age will depart, or impart, I should say, color on the spirit, but as is traditional, they would filter the color back out. Now, especially in America, most of the light rums produced here see no barrel aging at all, so they're not aging and filtering. What are they good for? Well, as I said before, they're not really big on bold flavor, so it's just a kind of a light, clean sweetness. Remember, it's a exotic drink for the vodka drinker, basically, and they're famous for being in daiquiris and mojitos. And if you think about those two drinks, it's the color, right? The fact that it has no color keeps the daiquiri really green and refreshing looking. And the mojito, you can see the mint floating around in there and the limes floating around in there. Also, it's great for tiki drinks where vibrant colors are necessary. Blue Hawaiians, any of these drinks that kind of hang their hat on the aesthetic, the pretty aesthetic of the cocktail. White rum doesn't make it all mucky like a brown spirit would. So it's really useful for bartenders making drinks where that aesthetic, that color, that appearance was the most important thing. So that's really the dominant style, is this Puerto Rican, very softly sweet style. Now, other rums are made across the world that are white. This Jamaican Overproof 123. This is just not a barrel-aged rum at all, but it's an Overproof from Jamaica, from Ray and Nephew. This is technically white, but if you're saying white rum, you're thinking of something more like this, or Don Q, or Bacardi. You're not really thinking of this really funky 126 proof rum from Jamaica. Another popular thing are these young rums all across the world end up being white. Anything that's not put in a barrel is white. So this is Kachasa from Brazil, famously a part of a caipirinha, which is just this, some sugar, some mashed limes, a real rustic creation. There are examples of this all over the world, and they all kind of hang their hats on these kind of smaller, more local expressions where, like, I believe this is the most popular rum in Jamaica. It's cheap and it packs a wallop, so why wouldn't it be? Cachaça is very popular in Brazil, but until recently we didn't see a lot of it outside of Brazil. So the dominant, certainly traditionally, but the dominant style of light, white, silver rum is this light, soft, very lightly flavored rum, rather than these really big expressions of flavor like these, or even a rum agricole. So, light rum, gold rum, amber rum, however you want to say it. What does it mean? Very little, actually. As we've talked about with rum, it's the Wild West legally. It just means, I guess that's the color of it. So some rums that are aged, like this Jamaican rum or this Dominican rum, this is 18 years, are gold. But some rums, like this 5-year Caribbean rum, even calls itself superior gold rum. So the insinuation with gold rum is that it has more flavor than white rum, not such bold flavor as dark rum or black rum. It's just an insinuation, of course. It comes down to the individual use. Whereas these guys would probably tell you could sip on these on the rocks. This guy is even saying right on the back, blend of gold rums, 5 years, best served mixed with cola or ginger ale. They're straight up telling you, mix this like a white rum, but with a little more flavor. Whereas these guys are like, no, sip on our products. So what does gold rum mean? Well, it means that it's that color. And legally, there's really nothing tying it to it. So we reach for gold rums in the case of something like this when we're mixing it. In the case of something like this, if we really want to lean into either a sipper at 18 years old, that's a little more expensive than we normally want to mix with. Or in this case, we want that Jamaican funk. We really want something in a cocktail that leans on that, or maybe leans on that. And if our other ingredients don't have different, like darker colors anyway, we might want something light like this so it doesn't change the color dramatically as maybe a funkier, blacker expression of Jamaican rum would. So gold brings two things to the party. It brings a very specific color, right? It's maybe too dark for crystal clear, but lighter than the black rum. So if the visual aspect of your end resultant cocktail is taken into consideration, gold rum. but also it can include and does include expressions of aged or age-dated rums that just don't have as much caramel coloring most likely, or at least have been filtered a little more after their time in the barrel. Cold rum. Dark rum. As the name implies, it's not light rum. So dark rum, what does that mean? Well, on the color scale, it can be anything that's kind of gold to something that's really, really black, and often they're sold by their color, like red rum, brown rum, dark rum, black strap rum, all of these things, they're letting you know the color. And there are historical reasons for that color. And the insinuation is time in barrel, but that's literally just an insinuation, because caramel coloring is definitely, especially on the non-aged or non-age date statement varieties, it's more about a flavor and an aesthetic than it is saying that this is inherently old. And the good thing about these rums, or the bad thing about these rums, is you have no idea what they taste like until you taste them. Because not only do they have geographic traditions of flavor profiles, also on the same island, different companies taste very different. So really getting into them, and the category is so wide that the good news is as a bartender, the more you taste stuff, the more different colors you have in your palate. So this Gosling tastes like coffee and cola. So a Gosling's and cola is the perfect rum for a rum and cola drinker, because it already kind of takes on that cola flavor. It works really well in coffee. Like I said, there's a lot of coffee and cola notes in Goslings already, so it really mixes very well with those things. This Cruisian blackstrap, for those of us who grew up in houses that didn't have maple syrup, that other pancake syrup that we grew up with will remind you a lot of the flavor profile of this. A lot of vanillin and a lot of that kind of pancake syrup flavor. This Diplomatico from Venezuela is really nice and interesting in that it's almost sassafrasy or root beery in flavor. It's really kind of cool and very interesting, but those different flavor profiles, of course, would lend you to give you the idea, especially if you're mixing them in cocktails, of different ways, different jumping off points. We can go down the list. This Plantation Dark is excellent, real fun, and a really soft sweetness, almost bright fruitiness on the nose. And finally, this Hamilton Jamaican Pot Still Black is briny, almost like olive brine. Really delicious and savory. So very different. 5 examples, all completely different. Dark rum, it's about the color in some cocktails, just like we use white rum in some cocktails because it's light, and we don't want to, we have a very specific idea of what the drink aesthetic is going to be when we're done using it. The same with dark rums. Sometimes if we're using dark rums, we know that the color is going to change. We're making a commitment into those kind of darker visual. And also, we're also making a commitment that we have a greater range of flavor. A lot of the funkier rums come in darker manifestations. But that's really all I have to say about dark rum. Añejo or aged rum. Añejo simply is the Spanish word for aged. So I should say añejo or age-dated rum. So there's a lot of rums that see aging in barrel, right? In a perfect world, the color from the rum would be all from the barrel. That is not the case because, as we talked about, rum is the Wild West, especially when it comes to legalities. They can use caramel coloring. Some folks will say, of course we're using caramel coloring. All of the bottles need to look the same shade. So we can only blend so much to make sure the customer sees the same product every time. We have to color it just for consistency, and other folks clearly are adding enough caramel color to change the very inherent nature of the product. You'll see like black rums that have no age statement on them at all and no claims of aging. And when you think about that, you realize that, okay, there's a lot of caramel coloring going on in that product as opposed to products that actually receive their aging from a barrel. So this is an aged rum. It says proudly on the back, double aged, because this particular Plantation Jamaica, dry Jamaican rum, comes from a line of other rums they have that were all 5-year age statements from different places. They have one for Barbados, one from Trinidad and Tobago. So they have a number of these different 5-year age statement rums. And then they have this Jamaican rum that is aged but not age statement. So this one says double aged because it's aged in Jamaica, and then they ship it to France because Pierre Ferrand owns Plantation. Pierre Ferrand is a famous cognac house, and they age some of the rum in France. And then I believe they do some blending there too. So they're really claiming double aging, but they're not telling you age statement. Why am I harking on the difference between aged and age statement? Well, because if there's an age statement on a bottle of rum, it means, generally speaking, they're probably blends of different rums, or at least rums from the same distillery, hopefully, but they don't have to be. But if there's an age statement on the barrel, it means the youngest rum in that bottle, not barrel, sorry, bottle, if the youngest rum in that bottle is that many years old. So this is Angostura 5-year, and it says Caribbean rum. And I believe they gave themselves a lot of latitude on where they're sourcing this rum from by calling it Caribbean rum. They mention that they're from Trinidad and Tobago and that there are plenty of sunny days on island paradise of Trinidad and Tobago, but they never say the rum is from Trinidad and Tobago. So they're able to source, but because they're saying it's a 5-year, they're at least letting you know that it's a minimum of 5 years. They're also claiming this rum is aged exclusively in first fill bourbon barrels, meaning they bought charred oak barrels and they're filling them with this rum and then filtering a lot of the color back out, because a bourbon might have more color than this, or maybe a less consistent color than this, but that's what they claim on this. And then of course these are El Dorado 12 and 15-year age rums. El Dorado is from Guyana, and this is the Kirk and Sweeney 18 from the Dominican Republic. So these are age statement rums, and you can see if I poured this out for you out of this bottle, it would have more color than either of these two. But this 18-year has less color than maybe even this 5-year. So color is not necessarily a direct indicator of age, and it's important to notice, especially when we talk about dark rums. So that's just a quick note on aged rum. Overproof rum. As the name suggests, it's overproof. What's overproof? Well, I've seen that number drip down. Especially in America, people will sometimes refer to anything above 100 proof as overproof. But I believe technically we're going to kind of hold the line with the original proof, which is now 57% alcohol. So 114 and up is proof or overproof rum. So Navy strength, Smith & Cross is proof technically, but we'll throw it in the overproof. This Ray and Nephew at 126, this 69% OFTD from Plantation, or 138 proof, or 151 from Guyana. So these are all different expressions of overproof. This is a Jamaican style, and it was when House Al Penn started importing this, it really kind of changed the game. An overt character and nose on it is really exciting. This white Ray and Nephew, it's got some funk on it still. It's Jamaican, but it's white. Not aged at all. I believe it's the most popular in Jamaica because it really packs a wallop. And if you're, buying to drink booze, why would you want a lot of water in your booze? This Plantation OFTD really was also a game changer, and you can see all of the tiki cocktail luminaries pictured on the side of the bottle there, who really went in for this, because overproof is an important historic category, and it certainly was an important category for tiki drinks and tiki culture. And last but not least, Hamilton started importing this Demerara River, meaning Guyana, 151. Now, historically, when you looked at old cocktail books and things called for Demerara rum, now technically the Demerara River runs through Guyana, so any place along the Demerara River, if you make rum, it's Demerara rum, right? But historically, what that word insinuated, Demerara rum, insinuated a dark, overproof rum. And this 151 from Hamilton, from Guyana, does not disappoint. There's like a really interesting apricot nose in the middle of it, with a lot of heavy, high-proof spirits. If you want to just taste it, sometimes adding a little water to kind of open it up makes it easier to taste and less all about the heat. And unlike the 151 that was the only one we had in this country for years that shall remain nameless, that just tasted like gasoline, these examples of overproof rum pack a lot of flavor. And so introducing even just a little bit into a cocktail can really add a lot. And you'll find often not just using these as the base of a cocktail, but using this as part of a split base, or literally just to season like a last half or quarter ounce on top or in the mix to really kind of stiffen the spine of a drink or add that one little missing bit of complexity and flavor, is how we end up using these. So overproof rums, it's not just to do fire tricks, it's also for flavor. And that's my bit on overproof rum.